Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio as of the end of 2020, moving into 2021, let's take a look. So overall, the portfolio's top holdings remain pretty much the same, with the usual suspects making up the majority of the portfolio. Technology, mainly because of Apple, is still the top sector, with financials at number 2. Now, as far as individual stocks, we got the same big four with Apple, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, and American Express, making about 70% of the entire portfolio. But we did have some interesting sells and purchases during Q4 2020 to take a look at, so let's jump right in. Starting off with the sells, specifically in financials, Buffett sold a small portion of his US Bancorp position, nothing too crazy, less than 1%, but he did sell over 50% of his Wells Fargo stake, and that's back-to-back quarters now that Warren Buffett sells off a good deal of his Wells Fargo shares. It looks like Buffett is probably going to eliminate Wells Fargo by the end of this year, which honestly I wouldn't blame him. Wells Fargo used to be one of his top holdings in 2017, making about 16% of the portfolio, but now it's less than 1%. And as far as Wells Fargo's performance, well, over the past 5 years, the stock has been pretty much flat. It has gone through a lot of regulatory issues, and it has severely underperformed other banking stocks in this same industry. And I also do believe that there are better options in the banking industry, better than Wells Fargo, at least right now. Okay, so he also sold off completely his stake in M&T Bank, PNC Financial, and one of my holdings, JPMorgan Chase. Now, we kind of saw this coming, as Buffett has been selling off these stocks over the past few quarters, and I suspect this might have been due to the run-up in bank stocks over the past 6 months. If we take a look at M&T Bank, they've been up over 40% over the past 6 months, PNC Financial, same deal, up over 50%, and JPMorgan Chase up over 45% over the past 6 months. So definitely a huge run-up in these bank stocks. Now, I have to say, even with this huge run-up, I still think that these stocks are somewhat fairly valued to slightly overvalued in my opinion on a forward PE basis. I do think that Buffett just has a really strong conviction with Bank of America and is sticking to just that one and eliminating all the other bank stocks, and there's nothing wrong with that. Alright, so a couple more notable sells were Barrick Gold and Pfizer. So Barrick Gold was actually purchased in Q2 of 2020. Buffett sold off about half in Q3, very likely at a profit, and then sold off the remaining shares in the past quarter in Q4. And probably also at a profit, a little bit of trading from Mr. Buffett. And we actually have a similar story with Pfizer, purchased in Q3 and then sold the very next quarter in Q4. And also, as you would expect, probably at a profit. We got Buffett out here day trading, man, out of control. Just out of control. Alright, so last up for sells, let's talk about Apple. This is now back-to-back quarters where Buffett sells off some of his Apple shares, and honestly, it just looks like Buffett is trimming down his position and taking in some profits. Apple is trading at somewhat of a high forward PE. We are looking at about a 29 to 30 forward PE for Apple, which is not too bad. I mean, if I was looking to buy Apple, I would probably be looking for a forward PE of under 30 to open up a position, and I guess Buffett is just taking in some profits, and also he could be cashing in to reinvest the profits into other stocks. Now, speaking of other stocks, let's move into the buys for Q4, which were pretty interesting actually. But first up, let's clarify something real quick. Buffett did add some positions during Q3 that weren't reported until the Q4 report. Okay, so again, this is Q3. Berkshire did not disclose the purchases of T-Mobile, Marsh Mclennan, Snowflake, Chevron, and Verizon. And out of these 5 stocks, Verizon and Chevron were by far the biggest additions, both getting over 1% added to the portfolio. Now with Verizon, you do have a pure value play with a forward PE of about 11, definitely in Buffett's wheelhouse for large and stable companies. This is a stock I do own and I think is a good dividend/value stock to have. The only thing I don't really like about the stock is their debt levels and their slow growth moving forward, but this still is a solid pick. So for Chevron, this is a bit more of a recovery play by Buffett here. I'm not a huge fan of oil/energy plays, but if I had to pick one oil stock, it would definitely be Chevron for sure. They have a solid balance sheet, a great dividend track record, and possibly still showing some good value even at these current prices. Alright, so those were the sneaky Q3 buys that Buffett did not disclose until after Q4. Now let's take a look at the actual Q4 buys, starting off with some familiar familiar names with Kroger, Merck & Company, AbbVie, and Bristol-Myers. All of these stocks were added to the portfolio last quarter, and it didn't surprise me one bit that Buffett went ahead and added to these companies again here in the fourth quarter of 2020. They all meet the criteria of having a strong business. They're also textbook value stocks. We have Kroger with a forward PE of 10, Merck & Company with a forward PE of 11, AbbVie with a forward PE of under 9, and Bristol-Myers as well with a forward PE of just above 8. They all have a solid dividend growth track record and all have a very healthy payout ratio, so I do like all these stocks that Warren Buffett has continued to add. Alright, so for the remaining buys, Buffett did continue to add some of those same stocks that weren't disclosed in Q3. He did add a bit more Chevron and Marsh Mclennan. Now real quick on Marsh Mclennan, they are a company that provide financial services in risk and insurance as well as consulting. They did $17 billion in revenue in 2020, and I gotta say, at face value, they do look like a solid stock. They have been growing their dividends for 10 consecutive years with a 9% compounded annual growth rate during those 10 years. They have a forward PE of just over 20, not the best in this industry, but still not too bad, and they also have a healthy payout ratio of 36. Okay, so for the last two purchases to go over, by far the biggest purchases in Q4, we got T-Mobile and Verizon. So this is interesting that Buffett would invest in both Verizon and T-Mobile. With Verizon, you are getting stability with a really good value, and with T-Mobile, Buffett is looking more at growth here. T-Mobile is trading at a premium with a 54 forward PE, but to their defense, they are pretty much the leaders in 5G as of right now, and at least they have a strong growth rate for 2021. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those were the moves that Buffett made during Q4, as well as some other moves that weren't disclosed on Q3. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.